On October 3rd and 4th, parliamentary elections will be held in the Czech Republic, which could become a turning point for the entire country. They will determine the direction the Czech Republic will take on key issues: relations with the EU and NATO, support for Ukraine, and migration policy. What do the polls show on the eve of the vote? What risks are there? And how is Russia trying to interfere in these elections as well? Let's figure it out. The election campaign in the Czech Republic this year has been tense and eventful. Televised debates sometimes turned into real battles. There was more campaigning on the streets and at various rallies than ever before. According to the results of almost all polls, 3 political forces have emerged as the frontrunners in this race. The ANO party of former Prime Minister Andrej Babiš, the center-right Spolu coalition led by current Prime Minister Petr Fiala, and the right-wing SPD party of Tomio Okamura. On the eve of the vote, the country's president, Petr Pavel, addressed the citizens, urging them to come to the polls and support political forces capable of guaranteeing the security and economic well-being of the Czech Republic.
A lot is at stake in the upcoming parliamentary elections, primarily because of the worsening security situation in Europe and the world, as well as the gradual loss of confidence that until recently seemed unquestionable. The Czech Republic needs a government that will continue to ensure its security based on its membership in the European Union and the North Atlantic Alliance. We need a government that will defend our sovereignty within the community of democratic countries and will not leave us at the mercy of Russia and its ambitions to restore its sphere of influence in Central and Eastern Europe. Petr Pavel, President of the Czech Republic, in an address to the nation.
The Spolu coalition, led by current Prime Minister Petr Fiala, promises its voters investments in energy and infrastructure, strengthening security through EU and NATO structures, support for Ukraine, and bolstering defense capabilities. Education, science, and a commitment to the democratic course remain priorities. Fiala himself, an academic and the first professor of political science in the Czech Republic, is highly regarded in Europe as a reliable partner and a great friend of Ukraine. On the other side, there are 2 political forces: the far-right SPD, known for its anti-immigrant sentiments and sharp criticism of the EU and NATO, and the ANO party, which many experts fear could lead the country down the Hungarian path. Its leader is billionaire and Eurosceptic Andrej Babiš, who, by the way, is a longtime ally of Viktor Orbán. While he was in power, he was accused of unfair competition, fraud, and censorship. The risk of democratic backsliding does exist, admitted the Prime Minister of the Czech Republic.
For the first time since November 1989, I too feel concerned, and it is necessary to preserve what we have and continue on the path we have chosen. Because today we are a country that is respected abroad, a country that is among the safest in the world, a country with a growing economy where people's wages are rising. We are an integral part of the West, and we are respected. And now there is a danger that instead of moving forward toward the most successful countries, which we are just a step away from, we might shift somewhere to the east.
And these concerns are not unfounded. For example, Babiš's victory in the Czech elections threatens Ukraine with a shortage of ammunition. If he returns to power, among other things, he promises to cancel the Czech initiative to supply ammunition to Kiev. The Czech government launched this program at the beginning of 2024. It brought together 16 European countries that are partners of Ukraine. At that time, the armed forces of Ukraine were lacking ammunition due to insufficient production in Europe and a 6-month pause in supplies from the United States. The initiative helped Ukraine receive about 1.5 million shells in 2024, and deliveries are still ongoing to this day. Of course, if the Czech initiative were cancelled, the Kremlin would give a standing ovation. According to Czech Foreign Minister Jan Lipavsky, this would be a gift for Putin. The same thing is being said by participants in the protest on Prague's Central Square. The polling stations haven't even opened yet, the votes haven't been counted, and some politicians have already made people worry about their future.
I want to say that the acute threat from Russia is very serious, and as an older person, I faced it in 1968, when tanks suddenly appeared on the streets. That's why I can realistically imagine that Russian aggression could happen at any moment. That's exactly why I believe it's extremely important to provide Ukraine with urgent and decisive assistance.
I came here today because I am concerned about the political situation in our country. It is similar to the situation in Slovakia and Hungary. The position of the politicians preparing to seize power is clear, and we need to speak out and show that we know our history and the value of democracy. We will fight for it.
Ahead of the parliamentary elections, Czechs discovered nearly 300 accounts spreading pro-Russian narratives to influence the outcome of the upcoming vote. This was reported by the Center for Countering Disinformation under the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine. The largest number of such accounts are on TikTok. They are interconnected, comment on and repost each other's publications, and persistently push rhetoric about a destructive West, expensive energy, and supposedly unnecessary support for Ukraine. Mass reposts create the illusion of widespread support for radical ideas, even though there's nothing behind it except a bot factory. These accounts are not affiliated with any single political organization, but instead show support for several radical parties at once.
The actions of these accounts are coordinated using automated bots and, in all likelihood, are part of a Russian troll factory. Russia continues to actively use troll factories and other information influence systems to promote pro-Russian and Eurosceptic political forces in Eastern European countries, aiming to influence election outcomes. Previously, the center reported on how the Kremlin tried to impose its political scenarios in Moldova. Similar approaches are being observed in the Czech Republic as well. All these actions are part of Moscow's large-scale plan to destabilize and advance its own destructive influence in Eastern European countries. From a statement by the Center for Countering Disinformation under the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine on Telegram.
There's nothing surprising about Russia trying to meddle in someone else's elections again. After its failure in Moldova, the Czech Republic is now under threat. The Kremlin's goal is obvious: to sow distrust in democracy, weaken the EU, and divide society from within. This is a real information sabotage, aimed at breaking the country's resilience and undermining its choice. It's also not surprising that the state is defending itself. Since September 30th, the Czech Republic has closed all visa centers in Russia. In addition, Prague has banned entry for Russian diplomats and holders of service passports who do not have national accreditation from the country's government. For Czech citizens, October 3rd and 4th are not just voting days. They are a test of democracy's resilience in the face of external pressure. Russia has studied the methods of hybrid warfare very well, so disinformation and provocations are possible both during and after the elections. Even now, the Kremlin is shouting that the elections in Moldova were supposedly rigged, and they're even trying to organize some kind of protest actions. However, over the past few years, Europe has learned not only to respond to these challenges, but also to prevent them quite promptly.